So there's four main boxes on the 2020 screen that are always going to be there. The fourth, and possibly one of the most important ones, is not related to the actual seating, but related to downforce. So bottom left here, downforce box. We'll talk about using field view a lot for looking at downforce and how to set it. But on this box, there's two numbers that you want to pay attention to: ground contact and margin. So on your planner, whatever the design or brand of your planner is, it's a different device. But there's some kind of a measuring device, a strain gauge or load cell that we've added, or you added, that are installed on there. And what happens is the disc openers engage the ground, the gauge wheels contact and come up and hit the depth stop at whatever depth you set. That the gauge wheel arms apply weight to the stop, and we measure how much weight's applied. So if your gauge wheel arms are hitting the depth stop, applying weight to our sensor, we know that you're planning at the depth you set. If they're not applying weight to the sensor, we know you're planning some amount shallower than the depth you've set. So ground contact simply is a measurement of, in the last 3 seconds, how much of the time was there weight being applied to our strain gauge or load cell. If the gauge wheel arms are in contact and applying weight to the depth stop 100% of the time, that's 100% ground contact. If it's 70% of the time, that's 70% ground contact. So I want my ground contact as close to 100% as possible. Right? Margin, in the middle, is the other measurement that's important. So margin is a measurement of after the gauge wheels come up and hit the stop, how much extra weight beyond that, how much more weight beyond depth, with the depth I've set, is being added. So it's extra weight that's carried on the gauge wheels that causes compaction. If it compacts enough and the wrong things all line up, you're going to get poor root development and a small ear. So I want that margin number to be low. Now you want some, so if you're manually adjusting, you're going to have varying conditions across the field, some more dense than others. If you have seed hoppers, when they're full versus empty, you want to make sure that you're not losing ground contact when they're empty. So your margin might be higher with a full seed hopper versus empty. So ideally, this is a 3-second number, so margin is what's the lowest reading of extra weight in the last 3 seconds, is what that is. So we're very concerned about getting too shallow, too light where we lose ground contact. So if I see a margin of 50 pounds, that means in the last 3 seconds my smallest reading was 50. I had a whole bunch of readings on the rows that were higher than that. Right? So as you move through the field, if you fill your seed hoppers and you've got 50 pounds of seed in there, and your margin runs from 10 to 40, what's going to happen when your hopper's empty? You're going to start losing ground contact. If your seed hoppers are full with 50 pounds of seed and you see 120, 150, 100, 130 pounds of margin, when your seed hoppers are empty, you're going to be down to 70 or 80. Okay? So ideally, you want your ground contact as close to 100 as you can get it, and you want to keep your margin as low as you possibly can. But not so low that your ground contact continually dips down to 90%. Try to pick up some of the different scenarios from tire tracks and different things. So like on this planner, I would have on one side, I'd probably put one on the second row between the tires. If I had one on the center section, I'd probably put it between the two tires on the center. And then on the other side, I'd put it on one of the rows that doesn't have tires beside it. Okay. So you're picking up 3 different environments, getting an idea of what's going on there. When we go to control systems and we're measuring 5 out of 12 or 5 out of 16, for control, there's different thoughts around how to do that. Just simply from the fact that some guys are like, well, I don't want to take in the bad rows. But in general, if you're just measuring, monitoring, manually adjusting, I try to pick up some of the different environments. These numbers, margin of ground contact, are a calculation of what's going on in the last 3 seconds. In field view, we're getting 5th second data on every row we're measuring that we can see at it all at once. So field view is really the place to watch what's going on with downforce and set it, and we'll get to that here after we get through some of the other stuff. So for any of these 4 boxes, if I touch the top, I get a bar graph. So here I can see a population bar graph. I'm going to go hit the back button in the bottom right. I'm going to touch the top of the singulation box. See bar graph here, multiples above the line, skips below. Touch on the top of the spacing box. I can see where spacing errors are occurring.